Good afternoon, ma'am. May we start the program?
Absolutely, Dr. Sushma. Good afternoon and thank you so much.
A very good afternoon to all. I, Dr. Sushma Sharma, Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology, extend a very warm welcome to all logged in. Mimar Medical College is celebrating its 25th year. As a mark of this Silver Jubilee celebration, we have arranged for an interactive guest lecture today by none other than Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar ma'am. I take this opportunity to welcome General Kanitkar. It is an honor to have you with us, ma'am. We also have with us our Executive Director, Dr. Suchitra Nagre, our Director Postgraduate Research and former Vice Chancellor of MUHS, Dr. Arun Jamkar, and our Principal, Colonel Rajendra Prasad Gupta. At the outset, may I call upon our Executive Director, Dr. Suchitra Nagre, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Very good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of management of MAIR and all the faculty, students of Mimar Medical College and College of Physiotherapy, Talegaon, I would like to welcome General Kanitkar ma'am. It's an honor that our invitation to deliver a talk to all our students of Mimar Medical College, and there are many delegates who belong to medical field and who are participating in this webinar. So on behalf of all of us, ma'am, I welcome you and I thank you for accepting our invitation to deliver this lecture. I can just say that during these COVID times, what I have observed about medical field is we, the doctors, were never a tech-savvy people. We were so busy in our day-to-day routines that other than mobile and few PowerPoint presentations, we have never participated in such kind of activities. So other than serving the COVID patients, what we have learned in last 4 months is, I think we have started using the effective use of technology for delivering our education, because I don't think ever in our minds we have thought of conducting any exams or any lectures or any tutes online for any of our medical students, because we always believe in hands-on. But I think this COVID era is teaching us so many things. And this is one of the positive change, I think, which had come up in the field of education, wherein now worldwide we have accepted that we should be using this technology partly. No need to travel every time and get the knowledge, but by sitting at your home also you can visit the entire world for these education. I would just like to mention a few things, ma'am. Actually, from 21st of August 2019, we have entered into its 25th year, and we were celebrating Silver Jubilee function since 21st of August 2019, and we were planning to conclude it on 21st of August 2020. But since March, we could not conduct any programs as per se, because we were so busy in COVID times and we were serving the rural part of Pune for the COVID patients. We have more than 100 beds allocated for COVID for the region of Mawal and Haveli and Khed. And I think we are doing what we are supposed to do with the support of all the faculty, all the teaching, non-teaching, Mimar. We are trying to give maximum to the COVID patients. So I'm really glad that today is 21st of July. So this webinar will be a part of so-called celebration of 25th year. And I thank you once again for coming up and delivering this lecture. I'm seeing you in the non-official race of army for the first time, because whenever I met you, I've seen you in the army uniform,
Yes.
Though it was a program in MIT or when I visited AFMC long back. So once again, I welcome you, ma'am, and thank you for being with us. And I think we need your support and blessings during this journey of COVID and otherwise also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Dr. Suchitra Nagre has been a pillar of strength and a beacon of light, leading us all through these stormy times. It is my proud privilege to introduce our guest for today, Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar Madam, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, She assumed the prestigious appointment of Deputy Chief Integrated Defense Staff Medical on 29th of February 2020. The General is a graduate of Armed Forces Medical College, Pune, and she topped the batch with all the three profs. She was awarded the President's Gold Medal and Kalinga Trophy for the Best Outgoing Student. She went on to obtain her post-graduation in pediatrics from Indian Naval Hospital ship Ashwini. The General Officer is a pediatric nephrologist and has trained for the same at the prestigious All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, and went on to obtain fellowships from NUH Singapore and GUS London. Her area of special interest is bladder disorders in children. She is credited with having set up the first ever pediatric nephrology services in the Army Medical Corps. The General Officer has held various key staff appointments like MG Medical, Northern Command, Udhampur, Deputy Director General, Armed Forces Medical Services, Professor and Head of the Department of Pediatrics, and went on to become the Dean and Deputy Commandant at Armed Forces Medical College, Pune, and has served as specialist in pediatrics at various military hospitals. For her distinguished services, General Kanitkar has been awarded the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal in 2018, the Vishisht Seva Medal in 2014, has received several commendations by the Chief of Army Staff and commendation by the GONC. The General Officer has been nominated to the Prime Minister's Science Technology Innovation Advisory Committee in the year 2018 in the month of October. And ladies and gentlemen, she is the only doctor who's serving on this committee. She was also nominated to the Board of Governors in supersession of the MCI in July 2019. General is an academician and educationist par excellence. She has completed the FEMA Fellowship in Medical Education, has a large number of publications, and has authored 15 chapters in various books on pediatrics. She received the Best Teacher Award by the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, Nashik. No amount of words or slides are enough to describe this stalwart person, respected across ranks and speciality. So ladies and gentlemen, that was a very small snapshot of this towering personality. Like she has said, and I quote, she very ably dons 3 different hats. And these 3 different hats belong to the noblest of professions, that of a soldier, a teacher, and a doctor. And may I add, she dons them with so much of elan. May I please now welcome Major General Kanitkar to deliver her address today.
Thank you so much,
Session is all
Dr.
yours.
Sushma. Thank you so much. At the outset, I'd like to thank the principal, Dr. Gupta, Sushma, you for chairing this and moderating it. Dr. Eric, my really good colleague who we've served together. Professor Jamkar, who's been the VC, and you just mentioned here, the executive director, Dr. Nagde, and all the faculty members who've joined in. And a special welcome to all my dear graduates and postgraduates and students, because I must thank you for that opportunity you have given me to interact with students once again. Amongst all the hats and things that I've donned, I think the best one has been and the times I've enjoyed have been when I've enjoyed them being with the students. And you have given me another opportunity. I thank you all for that. Now I think I'm good to go. So thank you very much. And I think Dr. Sushma started by saying that she's always seen me in uniform, and I thought everyone would, has probably associates me with the doctor and the white coat and the 2 pictures shown here, and that of a soldier and a doctor. So I thought, let me look like the teacher today. So thank you so much for that. And while we start our talk today on soldiers in white coats bracing for the emerging challenges, I thought I must quote a little amended quote of Martin Luther King, who said that as suffering mounts, I realized that there were two ways in which to respond, either react with bitterness or seek to transform with a creative force. I decided to follow the latter course. And along my entire journey and the fun that I've had, I've always probably chosen opportunities and ways to make a difference. And I'm sure all of us want that, and I've been lucky to be able to do that. We are used to seeing, when we say soldiers, the picture that comes to our mind is the one on the left. And when we say doctors, we are used to seeing this. But today we are in the midst of a dilemma where the soldiers and the doctors have become one because our enemy is quite different. So I start with the disclaimer that the views that I'm expressing are entirely those of mine, and they're intended to stimulate a thought process and a discussion. So I'll request all the students to, besides those who sent questions, to please think of how you'd like to question me in the end. And I think the war was declared when our Honorable Prime Minister on 29th March declared that India is at war with COVID-19 and it hails the frontline warrior. So the war was already announced, and this time it was not an enemy that we are used to across the border, but it was something called Corona. So the enemy was COVID-19 and the influenza-like illness. So we were in this situation, all of us medicos were in a dilemma. We were only used to, three situations. From community medicine days, we always know of any disease as three found, which is an environment, a host, and an agent. We're not used to treating enemies. We're not used to battlefronts, and we're not used to having guns and tanks and what have you. So let's try and fit how this whole enemy fits into this environment. And I thought it is important to see what firstly, it was a new virus, what we call the novel coronavirus. Besides causing infection, it was, as we saw in Europe and USA, it was causing something unusual, which was the cytokine storm. And then we realized that it needed some immunosuppression. Our age-old teaching is that in viral infections, you don't suppress immunity, but here was this place which required suppressing immunity. So these were your agent factors. And what were our host factor? We had a situation with no immunity. We only had adjuncts and they were not time tested. So we started with, say, hydroxychloroquine, which may be an immunomodulator. There were ashwagandha and other, Patanjali came up with its own. Then all sorts of therapies started getting suggested. And we did not. We are used to an evidence-based medicine, so we didn't know which one would work. Drugs, we were far from it to begin with. Even after all these months, where there has been a rapid, research. We just have probably a few of them, like remdesivir or tocilizumab and some others, which are being said that may reduce your time to illness during a duration of illness. But we're not really sure about what the long-term outcome. And the vaccine, well, that's something we look out for every day in the news. Is it there? Is it not there? Because till then we have nothing. But what is interesting is, where is this environment? And in this balance between immunity and the cytokine storm, the environment is our body. The battle is happening inside our body. So therefore, whereas immunity to a certain extent, it's good, it goes overboard, the cytokine storm. You cause immunosuppression, it can stop this, and you lead to secondary bacterial infections. So here was not just fighting the agent, but we had to also take care of the environment, which was our own body. So what were our weapons? I mean, as soldiers, yes, Jawaharlal Nehru said that when in this thing, our Indians are so motivated that even with sticks, they can fight the war. But is that enough here? No. So what are the tools or equipment or weapons that we had? We had our medical education, which taught us to look at things with evidence. We had research. We have been taught right from the beginning. So we put together these weapons and we were answerable for public health. But what I think was the most important, suddenly with all these lockdowns, we had time on our hands and we could use this. And in today's world, we cannot just have three pillars of a triangle where medical education, research, and public health don't talk to each other. What is important is they have to drive, one drives the other, and we have to bring in innovation, automation, and artificial intelligence to find solutions. And those are our weapons. And the biggest advantage that all my young listeners is that you are young. I love this slide that I've been using for a number of talks, because I find that when we just go from one exam to the other collecting information. Before we finished our 10th, we are into 12th, and then there are coaching classes, dropped years, and into MBBS. Barely have we finished with those 4.5 years, and we don't even bother about internship because we have to we've collected so much information, we have to throw it out in our MCQs and go on to gain some knowledge as postgraduates. And then we get into the practice of it. And by the time, we reach this stage where I can give webinars and talk like this, and the wisdom has come to aid that public health, the time has gone. So I think it's time to introspect that when you are young, you have the advantage, not just to be able to fight that coronavirus better. We've seen that young people are doing extremely well. You also have an opportunity to use that time to think beyond this and gain your wisdom faster. And what is the future? The future we are seeing, like Dr. Sushma pointed out, we were not used to doing these guest lectures. We were used to guest lectures where I would go to an auditorium, I could see all the smart faces in front of me, not just talk to a screen like that. But now we've been thrown onto the expressway, and therefore we have to change how we think about it. Now I'll just start a timer so I just know where we are going. So how has Corona changed this? That same triangle that I started with. Well, medical education is changing drastically. What took years to consider that, yes, are we doing correct? And we just about started a competency-based medical education. We were trying to bring about a difference, but we got thrown off guard and we started having to learn all the tools of e-learning through online classes. And in a clinical specialty, we have a huge number of challenges ahead. Neither are the teachers trained to start teaching, nor are the students to full-time sit behind a laptop and learn medicine. So we'll have to find our own solutions, and our research will have to look into this as well. We have research. We had so many projects. Today, all that we talk of in research is new diagnostic tests, new ways of collecting samples, new ways of new drugs and new vaccines. It's all about Corona. The patients have also changed. There is no time. There is no time to drag doctors to courts. There is no time for legal action. The patients are looking up for solace, and they're looking up to the doctors with new respect. So can we use this to our advantage? And in that, I would like to share another talk I prepared once on this, and I've shared it earlier with the Bharatiya Vidyapeeth also. So there may be some people who are listening. And I felt it's not that only coronavirus is the only thing that ailing us. Today, I think the medical profession is ailing. And can we treat it? Before we wage a war against your COVID-19, I would say, kuch to corona, and let's start thinking about medical profession itself. And this, I will share a few thoughts. I got an opportunity being on the Prime Minister's TIAC to closely interact and express some of these views. And I was so happy to see that some of you students have also queried as to what is the future of this medicine. So I would now go back to being a nephrologist and think of what is the progression of this disease. Since it's ailing, we're used to it talking of presenting complaints. I think public health is not improving. Patients are losing faith in medicine. Every day till this corona came in, the papers only talked of problems in this respect, and the escalating out-of-pocket expenses was increasing the poverty. So what is the history of presenting illness? Just as the kidney is having a multi this, whether it is electrolytes, glomerular functions, tubular functions, you can't blame one. It is multifactorial. Doctors are losing trust and respect they had in society. Why is this happening? Doctors are being dragged to court. They're even being beaten up. I mean, it couldn't have been heard of. Probably 50 years back, the scene was so different. They were the most respected people in society. But keeping that aside, I think is more important that the doctors are overburdened. They're stressed out. Hospitals are overcrowded in the public sector. What today we are seeing is what we really need to look into in a big way and change the apprehensions of the people, improve our public health, improve primary care before we start looking at tertiary care. Clinical bedside medicine is losing out to technology, and this e-learning is adding woes to the same problem. The escalating medical costs of our investigations and treatments are beyond the reach of the common man, and we tend to ask a battery of investigations. I don't know which one is more important, being covering yourself for legal issues later, or is it an incompetence, or is it a compulsion that we are teaching that let's start by investigation? All this is leading to patients just not being satisfied. And if you look at the past history of medicine itself, when we got independence, the Bohr Committee had envisaged a good public health through a tiered system by the government. Somewhere we failed that. There was an indigenous medicine possibly looking more into preventive health, but our curative services overlooked that. And we moved slowly from health care to disease cure. And there was the death first of the family doctor. You no more have a family physician who can just probably talk to you and make you feel better. Curative and tertiary care is given much more importance. Private healthcare is unregulated, and we may have some nursing homes, but even those are slowly fading away to a corporate business model for hospitals, which meant there was the functioning was different, but the patients were not ready for it. So when we moved from one system to other, I think no one held the hands of the patients. The communication gap widened, and no one explained that now when you go to a big hospital, it is not about talking to your doctor, it is the system that will take care of you. And somewhere there are huge gaps which we need to be looked out. The insurance sector is also misused and abused. So we need to examine this in detail and look at this. I mean, what are our top conditions? It's a total change spectrum. We have more of COPD, ischemic heart disease, and where the risk factors are also air pollution, dietary risk, high blood pressure, high fasting plasma, but there are no programs which across the country are looking and trying to change this. Look at this. I call this the BC and the AD, that is before corona and after this disease. One little RNA, and what did it do? I mean, these were our common causes of death on as late as January 2020. And look at July 2020, and the global causes, this corona, which is nowhere here, has become the third largest. So there's so much that one little strand of RNA virus has done. And yet we are used to, so we keep needing to more and more investigations when the truth is staring us in the face. I would say the diagnosis is a multi-system failure, requires a multi-pronged attack. So we need to change medical education. Very important to look at doctor stress in life. That will slowly help change perception of the public. We need a partnership in healthcare and effective use of innovation and technology. So this is something that I put in after one of the questions I saw, that how can we change? And I've tried to give this model to the policy makers and help with the MCI, and some of these things are coming in. We're soon going to the selection process now, it is need based, but we obviously, if we all put our heads together, we could make it to be a little more effective by probably even looking at 10th and 12th percentile marks. I think the internship has to be regained, the lost period, and next is planning to look at that. If a field service needs to be given importance, and I'm sure when you are young, you've joined medicine. If the situation was good, you would love to go and serve the people. You'd love to go and see actual patients. And if the PG is started even a year or two later, I think that experience will be amazing. We've already implemented this district program, which will soon be coming in for post-graduation, and it goes on like this. I would love to give a little more detail, but I think this is the basic thing that why the armed forces today is at the lead of healthcare on a mass scale, and why we need to adopt some of the best practices. So what is my message to the students? I told you, you have time. So please, maybe this, if it helps, try to introspect. I mean, we just go in a herd mentality. We have to do medicine because someone told us. We have to then, once we join in, we are only bothered about the PG seat, and we want to kind of then get a job and get into practice. So, I mean, we draw a little Lakshman Rekha around us. I think you need to cross that border and think for yourself. We have to practice the art of medicine. So we need to learn that from our teachers. The journey in medicine is long, from MBBS to specialization, it's never ending. So I think we all need mentors. And I always say, I love to give the simile of a map when you're lost, where you have to have a good mentor, the correct attitude and a passion. Syllabus is a guideline, because when a patient comes to you, no more can you say this was not in the syllabus. So we need to read much more. Diagnosis is definitely not an MCQ. So we have to change that wisdom, information we gain into wisdom, and not rush into degrees without giving time to assimilate and question ourselves. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the passion that I want? Your satisfaction will come only if you derive your own passion. And a doctor is there to serve the society. So we have to reach out to the society. And obviously, if the doctors are losing respect, if we introspect, reflect, just touch people's lives, we will all, and each one making that small difference is what's going to matter. So therefore, I would say, be a good human being. Being a good doctor is more important, and thereafter you can be a great specialist or a super specialist. So therefore, you need time. What do you need to make yourself happy? Do you need friends, family, money, profession? I don't know. If I ask a vote just now, I'm sure you'll say, I need all of this. But I think healing yourself is connected to healing with others. So I think it's most important to really look at that. And we are finding more and more stress among doctors. And if you ask me, stress is a lot self-induced. So we have to teach ourselves coping skills and try to have a holistic development rather than just going into some kind of a vocational or intellectual depth. So therefore, I call it the funda. The funda is to have fun. You need to have a fit mind in a fit body, and possibly divide your time in the day as a 80-20. So if 80% of the time you're doing something which you have to study, your profession, your work, keep that 20% of me time and use that to do some kind of activity with friends, which is de-stressing, which is making you fit. I think it's very, very important. Have friends outside of the medical profession, because you talk, your horizon widens. Take time to read things other than medical books. I think we need to really get beyond that, again, Lakshman Rekha of that we are not only with the stethoscope, but life has much more. So work hard, but don't forget to have some fun. Take time for that. And I think building positive mental health in 9 steps, this resource would soon be out. We've put it together. AFMC has helped us do that. And the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office would soon be getting it out. I'm just showing you the first. And now I move on to the doctor soldier. So what are the people in uniform? How we have been able to reach out to the country. And they are helping in this war by being both soldiers and doctors. So if you see, while the country was stepping up, we used our locations to step up COVID testing labs, and today we have it in 21 locations. Medical supplies were transported by sorties of the Air Force, and the evacuees were brought in through Vande Bharat by our naval ships. We created facilities, were the first quarantine facilities, and still a large number of them in the country are being run by the armed forces. the military hospitals were converted, additional beds were added, and people were also brought in from various parts of the world through sorties by the Air Force and the Navy. And this is something which, whether it was Maldives, whether it was Wuhan, Iran, I mean, one of the only countries which brought back its evacuees in good time, and they're back at home. So this is where the armed forces helped out. And I thought I must share certain other initiatives that we have used. This is where we've used telemedicine as a telemedicine, and we've set up our own platform, which is called Sehat. And again, it was some AFMC students, undergrads, postgrads who helped me. And in a record time of 15 days, we set this out as a telemedicine module, which is services, e-health, assistance, and teleconsultations, because people are scared to come to the doctors. We also help develop these models, predictive models, which are there for developing the inventory management. In addition to that, in Delhi, I was given the responsibility and could help in assisting developing COVID care centers in railways, along with the railways, where we've created, and our teams are working in these places. The 1,000-bedded COVID hospital, it was like a challenge, and all the ministries, all the secretaries, the various people all came together. There's nothing like collective competence, which really is required. As an individual, you can achieve nothing. And this was something which was set up in record 12 days. So this is the ground on your left side. If you see this barren ground, and we were planning, this was 29th June. By 3rd July, some basic infrastructure came up. By 5th July, it looked like this. And that even AFMC doctors, nursing officers, and the AMC team is here. And we are already looking after patients inside. This was 13th July. So therefore, keeping all this background, if I have to share a message to you, and thank you for that introduction of the 3 hats of a soldier, teacher, doctor, what would I like to tell you, dear students? As a soldier, you know, for all of us, the nation comes first. Let's take pride in it. The organization that you work for is next. Your team, your subordinates, the people who work with you are there very much more important before, and yourself comes in last. And the rest next is smart turnout, punctuality, hard work. These are the qualities which ingrained in us. I mean, there are a lot of serving people there, and 40 years of this, and you can't think differently. As a teacher, I think we all need to keep practicing before preaching, keep an open mind and keep learning. Even now, I keep experimenting, trying to learn new tricks. And that competence and knowledge is paramount. So keep gaining more. You can't, you'll stop being a teacher the day you stop learning. And as a doctor, I think these qualities of compassion, caring, empathy, and a right combination of the head and the heart is so important. If we can just package a little of all this into all of us, you don't have to wear the uniform. You don't have to wear the white coat. You don't have to wear the teacher's hat all the time. But if you take these qualities, I think we can all be better people. So therefore, what does Abdul Kalam say? I would like to quote him: don't read success stories. You will get only messages. I think I'm giving you too many messages. I said, take some time to read failure stories, because you will get some ideas to get success. I think that's also important. So all the teachers on this group who are listening, what is my message to them? Again, I quote Abdul Kalam: teaching is a very noble profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. You can never stop being a teacher. If the people remember me as a good teacher, that will be the biggest honor for me. I think each one of us needs to think like that. And our biggest challenges today is being role models, igniting young minds, mentoring in letter and spirit beyond the classroom. Enjoy the thrill of teaching by making each teaching learning activity better than the other. And don't just lecture. I think what we need to do is how to inspire the younger generation, influence them through lectures, and then possibly inform. For information, Google Baba is also there. and keep learning with an open mind to keep teaching, because you have to dream before your dreams can come true. And to succeed in your mission, you must have a single-minded devotion to your goal. He has been a role model for me, and incidentally, I feel very honored I share a birthday with him. So what I would say is, before I end, that we have miles to go. Let's remove that I and put it with a we, because that will be our path from illness to wellness. So all the best to all my doctor warriors. Let's gently, again, I bring in a little bit of nephrology. Let's gently protect ourselves as a medical profession is ailing. Let's protect that. We'll definitely find solutions for corona. Let's retard the progression of disease with caring and practice. We need to also avoid all these ethical and consumer protection acts which will lead us to dialysis. And if we don't do this, we might all get transplanted. So with that, before I end, I request all of you all, I think I'll pass a message. Please bring out your smartphones and just scan this code on my talk. I'll just put it again. Yeah, if you can scan them, I'll just give you about 10 to 15 seconds. This is your first question. So please type your answers. Great. So I'm glad that most have not got bored of this monologue. That's the only problem with e-learning, that you just, you don't see people's faces, you don't know, so you kind of get into this. So with that, come to the next question. Everyone's concerned about future and course and degree. Yes, I can quite understand. And let's take the questions and say what's going to happen later. Yes. So majority, 83.8, are very concerned. And I understand your concerns, but I'm sure there would be a way forward. After all, Corona is not going to stay here forever, but we have a huge life ahead and lots of things to do. So thank you so much. Let's have the next question. So that's interesting. See, so what does it prove? None of us want to sit idle and just sit at home. We want to do something, we want to learn. So I think that's an excellent feedback, that we really need to look at ways and means to reduce this lockdown, get out fast, start our classes, go on and move on with life. Excellent. Wow. See that, I mean, if 89.9, that's near 90% are learning something new in this lockdown, have opportunities to learn new things. Life is about learning more and more things. So therefore, that's why I said, look, we forget to think of the positive things. We can see. Well, that's nice, and I hope the 59% who wanted to learn something new got some new ideas today. I wish I had put a question that, and did you or did you not? But I'm glad that there was a curiosity, that you thought that this would open up your mind. So that's the first thing. Don't forget. In a big classroom, look at the advantage of this learning, this kind of anonymity. In an open class, we are very scared to put up our hand and ask a question. But if we use these tools, In the anonymity, we get to express ourselves, we get to give a feedback, and never give up on your curiosity. Thank you so much that you do feel you've learned something new, and I like that. You know, it's so nice to get a feedback and anonymous. So you are, you know, you're free to write whatever, you can click whatever in the quiet this thing of your. That's the beauty of. I put this on only to you know, this thing that yeah, that we are done with it. Thank you so much. So we finished. And thank you once again to the organizers for putting us, giving me this opportunity to interact with so much. And now the time is all yours. Please shoot questions and I'd love to take them. I'll stop sharing screen so we can probably see some of the people.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ended on a note of fun with that online poll for sure. But you did inspire us with your various messages, and I'm sure the BC to AD alarms will be dealt with all of us joining hands. I can reassure you, ma'am, that as medical teachers, we'll take up the new challenges in medical education. And I'm sure and I hope that the armed forces model will come into place. Well, the students, I reassure you, we as teachers will do our best to encourage them to cross that so-called Lakshman Rekha, which they have set around themselves. And students, again, I cannot help but reiterate what ma'am said. Do not look upon it as a vocational training, but as a holistic one. And do remember the beautiful way in which she presented the funda. Remember the 80-20, and I'm sure no one will have to seek any help for their mental health. And a big salute and admiration to the soldiers who have, as always, lived up to the challenges of the nation, ma'am. So thank you once again. And now move on to the question answer session. And I hand over the session to Dr. Eric D'Souza from our Department of Pediatrics. Over to you, D'Souza, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. Pleasure to have listened to your talk. And
Thank you.
I've been enlightened. We have a few questions. First is, ma'am, what are your comments about this new competency-based medical education?
We need to move towards that, and the student can take time. Each one's learning curve is different. Someone may want to do it 10 times, someone may do it in 2 times, but no one is better than the other. Each is equal. So if you say that you have to be, this is the level of competency you have to achieve, you can give the student time. So this is a more student-friendly, student-centric, and it is based on a lot of feedback. So I think what is important is to be able to, the teachers will have to take up the challenge, because students will be able to shift to it. But teaching in a where we are used to going and delivering a lecture and coming back, I think the challenge is more for the teachers.
There are some students eagerly waiting, ma'am. I request Shantanu to kindly unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Shantanu Chitale, and I'm an intern working at Mymar Medical College. In these testing times, I just wanted to ask that we get news from very different sources, but I wanted to know your view on this, that is there a possibility that this pandemic is a part of biological war?
I don't think so. I don't think so. There is, see, we go by evidence-based, and there is no evidence which has suggested that it has been, it's gone. And when you do a biological war, you would go to a particular place, you have one enemy, right? You don't attack yourself and attack all the others. Plus the genetic makeup of the virus has, till now, as of date, the evidence does not show any conclusive this thing to say it's genetically engineered. So I think it would still be a part of a mutation. And we know that from the Spanish flu days, we know that every 10, 20 years we have these pandemics. So this is part of it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Dr. Eric, there was one student who typed in, and I thought that was a very cute answer. As a medical student, what can I do? And I thought that was a very relevant, and there are lots of medical students. So can I just answer that? So there was someone who just asked a question. So I'll just answer that before I listen to your question. And I think a medical student is already part of the medical fraternity. The day you join MBBS, you have become part of the medical fraternity. The level is different. No one expects a medical student to do a cardiac surgery. So, but at the same time, there is a role for each one. So as a medical student, what you can do is increase, when you talk as a medical student to your society, wherever you're staying, you do carry weight. You can conduct a small survey. You can dispel misinformation, disinformation, read up more and do that. You can take up a little online survey of people and see what you can do to make a difference. So there's so much. You can go and volunteer at your nearest community center, COVID care center, taking all the precautions, explaining the whole thing, taking your family's inputs, so you'll know, because your life is going to be spent with infections and things. So, I mean, a soldier is not scared of a bullet, right? So is the medical student. You're not scared of disease. So go out and do that. Even as a medical student, you have the right to be able to work in your limited resources. There's a lot. You can take up a small ICMR project. You can finish it right sitting at home. You can carry a survey. You can do an interventional study. There's plenty you can do. So just find yourself a teacher who will guide you and do that. Okay, now you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I'm Savani Pargi. I'm a postgraduate student in musculoskeletal physiotherapy. I wanted to ask that in today's era where we are talking a lot about research, where does India stand today in the world in terms of clinical or basic?
I think we are on a verge of amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
2-3 things which I'd like to share with you all. Firstly, whether it's the Department of Biotechnology, whether it's the Department of Science and Technology, DST, whether it is through the, the ministry itself, HRD ministry, there's a huge impetus being given. And since you're a girl, I'll add that particularly to girls. There's a huge amount of funding that is available. You can go on to any of these sites. There's, for the first time, we are through the MHRD, there's an attempt at developing innovation and this thing culture in the country. It is newness comes from the young. Old gray hair and gray, where the gray matter is less and the gray hair is more, you become rigid. It is you youngsters who have an open mind. Have you seen Microsoft? School dropouts and the most youngsters are, writing codes and preparing apps, because you can think of the new things. So I think we are at that right time where we have to change our thing from bookish knowledge and looking to this, to looking on real life problems and finding ways to acquire skills that is competency based, to try and solve a problem. So I think plenty. And look at that. I mean, when we were undergrads, we never had ICMR, MUHS. From undergrad days, we are encouraging the research culture. It carries on subsequently. ICMR is running dual degree programs, MD, PhD, MS, PhD. The reason is because and finally, we will have to do research for our own problems. We can't keep waiting for US and others too. You see the vaccine research. There's so much going on. Look at our antigen antibody testing capabilities. Look at whether it's Feluda from the CSIR labs or whether it's IGIB, which have given so many genotypes of the coronavirus. We are at par with the world. It takes a little time for the youngsters to come in and for the elder mindset to start encouraging the youngsters to take these challenges up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Isma Rumani, postgraduate student in cardiovascular and respiratory physiotherapy. Ma'am, my
Yeah.
question is, what according to you is the biggest weapon with us against the fight against this new, this invisible war?
Firstly, it's quite a visible war. Abhi the war is visible. I mean, no, I mean, what happens in a war? The first thing is you all, you know, the whole country comes together. Have you not seen that happening? We are all come together, from the person who's, you know, cleaning, you're sweeping the streets, everyone has come together. We've all realized, and I think the biggest weapon is the smallest thing. Today the biggest weapon available to everyone is a mask.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
wear a mask and you wash your hands. I think that is the biggest weapon, because what is the biggest one? Which reaches everyone. Not that even your vaccine may take time to reach everyone, but a mask and hand washing and social distancing is there with everyone. And I think that is, and as a medical and a paramedic student, your biggest weapon is your knowledge, your
Yes, ma'am.
ability, because you go one step above everyone else. You're a trained soldier in this war. Others are untrained. So these are your two big weapons. You know, there was a lovely question from one of the students saying, ma'am, what are the qualities of a teacher? So I would first want the student to give me what are the qualities of a student. So whoever's typed that can type an answer and say, these are the qualities of a good student. I'd love to see that answer, because I'll tell you the qualities of a good teacher. I think the quality of a good teacher is to understand the student. And I think you don't need to do anything more. If you understand the need of the student, you teach accordingly. You understand the problems of the student, you're always there to help and give them a, you know, how to go find a way. If the student is lost, you know, you have to show the way to that light to that student. So I think understanding and remaining connected to a student is the biggest quality of a teacher. That is my personal.
Good afternoon,
The
ma'am.
question?
Yeah.
Ma'am, my name is Andrea Almeida, and I'm an intern in Mimar College. So my
Yeah.
question is that, do you think that we are missing on the health issues of the general public under the anxiety of COVID at present? What's your opinion on that?
You couldn't be more correct. I think this is an opportunity for us to realize that, see, our hospitals were always crowded, and suddenly those patients are not there. Do you mean to say diseases are not there? It cannot be.
Yeah.
And data has shown, evidence has shown, there are, even the Lancet had articles which have said that, you know, we are delay in diagnosis of even strokes and MI has gone up by 67%. So it's a
Yeah.
huge number, and we are missing out on that. And this is because of the fear. One is fear of the patients to come to a hospital. They don't know, they feel everyone has got COVID over there. And the second is fear of the healthcare people. Have we got so worried that we've stopped running all our OPDs? Both, I think, are part of it. And I think in this time, this is the time for telemedicine. And that is why the telemedicine guidelines, telemedicine was there since the 80s, right? But it was not picking up. And there were ethical issues, there were Supreme Court rules, but the Board of Governors worked day and night and released them out. In fact, by 14th May, even the Gazette notification, and April end, already the Ministry of Health had approved the telemedicine guidelines. And this is the time to reach out and get to people. And in that, the central government has started a free e-Sanjeevani OPD. And this e-Sanjeevani is being run, and all the state health authorities are running it. So people can log in. So but we are not going and teaching the people. You know, so many things are there. So who will teach the people? I think we have to. And I'd like to share with you all that when I started Sehat in the armed forces, just a month back. I mean, we started it in June, and this is just a month it is running. But I'm doing webinars for my doctors to teach them on every Saturday, Sunday. In addition to that, I've included society. when students ask me, what can we do? What have I done? It's not that just because I'm a lieutenant general. I've gone to the women's wing and the welfare organizations in the army. And tomorrow I'm having a meeting how in every housing colony, I can put up a central a computer and let people come there and hook on, because they may not have a computer at home. They may not know how to, log in and take a consultation. So what I'm doing is I've asked volunteers from the women's wing and I'm calling them Sehat Sakhis. Now these women will help other women to log in, keep a central thing in every society. Why can't it be done in the societies that you all live in? No?
Yeah,
So everyone can make a difference. You just need to think and you say, how can I help people? And there'll be ideas.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the new information what we got. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks.
One last question from Shantanu wants, he's very eager. Shantanu, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Shantanu is full of questions. Good.
Ma'am, I particularly wanted to ask that in a medical fraternity, which aspect or which discipline of the armed forces should we mainly inculcate?
In the medical fraternity, I think discipline and fitness. If you ask me, two things which doctors lack,
right,
as a group of people, one is discipline, because when you have discipline, it comes in everything, whether it's coming dot on time to the ward, whether it is taking an appointment seriously. You always find the patients are waiting. Discipline gets you to put all this in this, and discipline also your lifestyle, everything in moderation. And the second thing which I said is, what was the other one I said? It was discipline and fitness.
Fitness.
You know, the armed forces, even today, I mean, I'm nearing 60 years, but 1 ghanta, I will do exercise. Come what may. It's become so part of me. If all of us today, lifestyle diseases, why are we having young Indians succumbing to COVID? They're all with hypertension, diabetes. That's going to be the future problem. And how can you preach what you don't practice? If you're telling your patient don't smoke, but you're sitting there and smoking, no point. If you're going to sit and, be so fat, obese and everything, and tell him ki bhai roj ka exercise karo, he'll not listen. But if I'm standing there fit as a fiddle and telling them, you'll also listen to me, no?
Right.
So,
thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Welcome, welcome. I think there was someone asking, I mean, how can you join the armed forces or something? So I thought I can always definitely, I'm sure your principal or Dr. D'Souza will also guide you all. But anyone who does an MBBS and would like to, it's a challenging service, because it's a pyramidal structure. You can't all reach. Everyone is good, but everyone doesn't reach the top. That's one. Secondly, you have to have a spirit of adventure and roughing out attitude in you, because every 2-3 years you should be ready to pack your bags, move. I mean, I always took it as an adventure. So that aspect, I must tell you all must take it. But beyond that, I think it is the most respected. You get to work in a very clean environment, and once your degree is over, you finished internship. During internship itself, there are advertisements and there are interviews conducted by the office of the DG AFMS, and those who pass that interview and are medically fit are selected for a short service commission. As a short service, after 4 years, you can do a post-graduation, you can extend your service, or you can try for a permanent commission.
It was a pleasure to be here this time. Now I would like to hand over to Colonel R.P. Gupta, principal of MIR Medical College, who will speak a few words.
Good afternoon. First of all, I congratulate General Madri and her husband, General Rajiv, to be the first couple in this country, India, to rise to the rank of 3-star general.
Thank you so much. He was sitting here and listening, so I'm calling him on the screen to share the space with me.
Yeah, madam.
Yeah.
I have been in association.
That's the two of us. Thank you so much,
22
sir.
years, and together in military hospital Pathankot and subsequently in AFMC. And in Pathankot, your husband at that time was commanding an infantry battalion. And we all used to think that this couple, so humble, amazing, talented, always smiling, that they will go to the very high rank in army, and which has come to reality today.
Thank you so much.
Well, Madhuri Kanitkar has spoken very well on this topic, narrating all problems, very well discussed all technical aspects, administrative problems, and economic problems in this country, India. Well, you have very compared the act war with this war against dreadful diseases, Corona. Well, this address of General Madhuri has been extremely rewarding to all doctors, healthcare workers, and solved many doubts among them. Well, question and answer session was really very interactive, very useful, and you have so many solutions to the problem. The best thing which you have defined a teacher, the teacher is that who understands student well. That is the real thing which you have told to all teachers as well. On behalf of our Executive Director, Dr. Suchitra Nagre Madam, we are thankful to General Madhuri Kanitkar, AVSM, VSM, for sparing her valuable time for this webinar from your to more so being busy practically in this COVID situation as well as China showing against it. Thanks to Colonel Animesh Chaturvedi also for his active participation in webinar. We are thankful to our Executive Director, Dr. Suchitra Nagre Madam, for her initiative to conduct this webinar. Thanks to all medical college faculty and students in Maharashtra for joining this webinar and having a very good interaction with General Madhuri. Thanks to Dr. Sushma Sharma for hosting this webinar. Thanks to Darpan Mahesh Gori, Dr. Janice, and Dr. Colonel Derek D'Souza for coordination, and Dr. Colonel Eric D'Souza for moderating this seminar. So, Madam, please convey my regards to General Rajiv Kanitkar, sir.
Yes, sir.
General Madhuri Kanitkar, Madam, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of this webinar. Thanks to
Sir.
all.
Jai Hind.
Thank you, madam. Thanks to all.